YouTubers, my name is Attila Mate from Blue Sky Photography, and today I would like to talk to you about two zoom lenses. And these two zoom lenses are the Fujifilm 55-200 variable aperture lens, because this lens is 3.5-4.8 zoom lens. And the second is the Sigma 50-100 f1.8 zoom. Now, probably you all know that I'm in love with the Sigma art zoom lenses. You know, I love them. I just simply love them. I think that they are the best APS-C size lenses ever created. Obviously, they have some downsides and they have some problems. Some copies of the zooms, they have focusing problems. Mine didn't have any issue, I didn't notice. But anyway, if you are ready to accept that possibly you might have some issues with the lens and you have to work with the lens according to that, you will get some images that it's unbelievably good. And I think that on an APS-C size camera, an Nikon or Canon, because these lenses are for DSLR, and you can also adapt on mirrorless, obviously, but it will not be autofocus, it will be only manual focus, except the Canon version where you can adapt to the Sony cameras with the adapter, with the autofocus adapter. Now, what I want to do, because I like this lens and I think that the art lens is the best possibility for portraits, for APS-C size cameras. I mean, sharpness wise and obviously it's the fastest zoom lens what you can find. It's a 1.8 lens, and that will be like f2.8 on a full frame. So this lens will act actually on the Nikon D70-200 or on the Nikon D500. It will act like a 75-150 f2.8. It will act like that. So you will get pictures like if you put a 70-200 lens on a full frame camera and you shoot on 150, something like that. So what I want to do now, I want to compare with this Fuji lens. This is, like I said, it's a variable aperture lens, but what I want to test out and what I want to figure out, how you can get kind of the same depth of field, kind of the same autofocus blur with this lens and with that lens. We all know that the Sigma art zoom is the sharpest possible lens on the planet. So obviously that this Fuji lens will have big trouble, you know, to stand and to be there, you know, to be kind of comparable with the Sigma art. And obviously the Nikon D70-200 is also a very good camera with a very good sensor. So I will make the pictures with the Nikon D70-200 and the Sigma art, and also I mount the Sigma art on Fuji XT-20. So it will have I will show you some photos which were made with the Fuji XT-20, and this one obviously on the Fuji XT-20. So why I do these comparisons? Because in my opinion, we should all know, you know, what are the possibilities. What if you don't have that kind of zoom? What you can do then to achieve kind of the same effect. You won't get the same effect 100%, but what you can do to achieve kind of the same effect. So let's get into my computer and let's see those photos, and let's see how you can achieve kind of the same effect on this lens, like on the Sigma 50-100 1.8 art. So let's see those photos. So we are in my computer now, and let's open up Zoner Photo Studio 18. Now, you can see in the first set I will show you 4 photos, and this is just for kind of a rough comparison, but at the end, you know, I will show you, after this I will show you photos made with the Sigma 50-100 and the Fujifilm 55-200. So this first photo was actually made with the Samyang 135 f2 lens. Now you have to, on this you see the photo was made with the Fuji XT-20, and you can see over here that the f-stop, the aperture is not recognized. because I use the dumb adapter, and you have to take my word on it, because I cannot prove, you know, that this photo was made with the Samyang. But unfortunately, the exit data is not transmitted to the camera. But this photo was made with the Samyang 135 f2. This photo was made with the Fujifilm. You can see over here on the right side the exit data, the camera recognized 55 to 200, and it was done on 200 millimeter on the maximum zoom range and an aperture 4.8. Now the third lens was made with the Sigma 50 to 100. Obviously here the aperture, again, it wasn't recognized because this was on the Fuji XT-20 with a dumb adapter, and this photo was done again with the Sigma 50 to 100. Now I don't want to show here any sharpness or anything, just look at the background blur, you know, and obviously you can see that the 135 millimeter is the best between all the four, and it blurs out the background very nicely. So the Fuji lens and the Sigma lens is kind of the same, because the Sigma lens was on 100 millimeter, the Fuji was on 200, and this was again at 135. So anyway, I just wanted to show you here the background blur, you know, how in different lenses, how you can expect what you can expect from different lenses. Now get to the next photo, and here we have the on this side you will see the Fuji XT-20 with the lens 55 to 200, and it was on 200 millimeter. You can see down here the EXIF data, and it was on f4.8 because the lens is 3.5 to 4.8, so it was on 200 millimeter f4.8. On this side you see it's an F file, so it was on a Nikon D7200, and it was on f1.8 on 100 millimeter. So it's the maximum you can get from the Sigma 50 to 100. This is the nicest bokeh what you can get. Now, as you can see over here, the two bokeh is different. In some situations, there might be some people out there who like this kind of creamy bokeh, and this is kind of contrasty. You see over here where the bushes are, and this is kind of contrasty. Now, how did I do this? Because as you can see over here, you almost have the same blur, the same background blur. On the Sigma is still a little bit nicer, smoother, but on this side it's pretty good, you know. And it, as you can see, it's kind of circular. I like this in this Fuji lens, that it creates some circular bokeh, you know, here. So let's get a little bit closer and let's check the sharpness of this lens. Now, we all know that the Sigma 50 to 100 is one of the sharpest lenses, you know, on the planet. And if you check over here, you will see that the Fuji it's ridiculously sharp as well. I mean, it is the same. I would say it's the same sharp as the Sigma. I don't really see any difference in sharpness. Now, if you check the green colors over here and the bush with the red colors, that's why we choose this location intentionally to get kind of the same colors, you know, and the same contrast in the pictures. But as you can see, the Fuji picture is a little bit contrastier than the Sigma. The Sigma doesn't really have that much of a contrast. Even on the person's face, you can see that it's kind of different. Now, obviously, the Nikon camera was on standard, and the Fuji camera was on standard. Picture profile wise, I'm talking about the picture profile. So both of the cameras were on standard. Here on the Fuji, you can see the colors are a little bit different. I like a little bit much better the Fuji colors than the Sigma colors, but that can be repaired after that in post-processing. So let's check the next set of photos. Now, this is different situation, because on this situation, I obviously, what I try to do over here, I try to achieve the same kind of composition, the same kind of background, but in order to achieve kind of the same background blur, I had to go further from my subject. And
if I am further from the subject, obviously the background compression will be different. You can see that over here the compression is very much different than on this one, because here you can't see this chain down here, and with the Nikon you can see the chain, because this is only 100 millimeter, which is 150 millimeter on full frame, and this is 200 millimeter, which is 300 millimeter on full frame field of view. So that's why the compression is very different. Now on this photo, what we tried to do, we tried to place our subject in different situation, so you can achieve kind of the same blur like with the Sigma. This side again is the Fuji, and you can see that it's on 200 millimeter f4.8. This side is the Nikon with the Sigma 50-100 at 100 millimeter f1.8. Now, as you can see over here, because the background is further down, the blur is exactly the same like with the Sigma. On this, you can see some difference because the person was the same distance from the background. On this side, you don't see the difference because the background is further down. It's not the same distance like with the Nikon. The Nikon and the Sigma, the background was closer to the subject. That's myself actually. And on this side, my friend had the background far behind him. So if you want to achieve kind of the same depth of field and the same background blur with this lens or any kind of zoom lens which is not fast enough, which is a variable aperture zoom lens, you can do that, but you have to place your subject according to that, and you have to know the disadvantage and you have to work around to combat that disadvantage, you know, to balance up that disadvantage. And in this case, we placed the subject in such situation that the background is further down. Again, if we check the sharpness, you can see that the Sigma lens and the Fuji lens, they are the same sharp. You know, I mean, I don't see any difference in them. You can see over here that both lenses are excellent sharp. You know, it's not a bother, not a question. So let's get to the next one. Now over here, you can see that this was again a different situation, and the background, it is again on the same distance from the subject. On this side, it is the Nikon D7200 with the Sigma 50-100 f1.8, and on this side it is the Samyang 135mm f2. You can see over here that the f-stop is not recognized. So the camera didn't recognize the f-stop because it was a dumb adapter. So it was the Samyang 135mm. But you can see over here that 100mm on the Sigma and 135 Samyang, and the Sigma is not as smooth and not as nice as the Samyang. So that's why if it's 135mm f2 or 100mm f1.8, obviously the 135 will be much nicer and much smoother, the background. So I hope that this video was helpful to you guys, and I did this video just to show you kind of in which situation and how you can do some photos, which one actually with a variable aperture zoom lens, which one actually will look like a faster zoom lens, you know, or a faster prime lens. Obviously you cannot compare, you know, the Fuji lens, the Fuji 55-200, you cannot compare with the Samyang, because you can see that the Samyang is 135mm, which looks like 200mm on full frame, and it's an f2 lens, so it's pretty hard to beat that. You can see over here that this is the Fuji picture and this is the Samyang picture, and you can see the difference. I mean, the background blur is just incredibly softer over here and nicer than on the Fuji. So in this kind of situation you cannot compare them, but in the same time, if you place your subject in a different position, and then you can see like here, and then you can see that the background blur will be likely the same, you know. So you have to know the weakness of the lens, and you have to work to balance up. You have to work in such a way to balance up that weakness. So I hope that this video was helpful to you guys. I hope that you liked it. If you liked it, please like and subscribe. If you think that I forgot something about this and you want to add something, feel free and leave a comment down below. And other than that, I wish you a nice day, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care, guys.